Hello everybody, this is Greg, aka Crazy G from NECR New England Concert Reviews, and I'm back at it again. Same stuff, different day. Today we have a very, very special guest. His name, Lawrence Gowan, lead vocals and keyboardist for the legendary band Styx. Hello, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to hit us up here at NECR. How are things?
Things are great, and they can only get better when you're talking to Crazy G.
Well, I like to think so, Lawrence. I got to be honest with you. Styx, one of my favorites all time. And
good.
Briefly, can you give us a little background on yourself and a brief interpretation of the band along with the history of its classics?
All right, I can do that. First of all, this outrageous Canadian accent is comes to me naturally because I grew up in Toronto, Canada. I was born in Scotland, in Glasgow, but our family moved to Canada when I was a little kid. So when I grew up, I studied classical piano, but I really wanted to be a rock player, along the lines of Rick Wakeman or Elton John or Freddie Mercury, guys like that I really admired. And so by the 1980s, I had a record deal with CBS Records, Columbia Records, and released several albums from 1982 until 1999, and a couple of my records were multi-platinum, and I had 3 gold records and a greatest hits album and a gold single. And so I had a really pretty thorough and rewarding career in Canada. Unfortunately, the way my deal was structured, the way my record deal was structured, I never did get a release in the United States, and that was always a frustration and something that I wanted to overcome at some point, but really, wasn't sure exactly how. These record deals were very structured back then, and I know to people today that probably sounds really unusual since now, with the internet, things have changed dramatically. But in 1997, I played a show with Styx at what then was the New Montreal Forum. Wow, that's nearly 20 years ago. So Styx became aware of me, and a couple of years later, they decided after much deliberation and I guess emotional upheaval that they wanted me to join the band. They needed a new guy, and I joined, and that was nearly 18 years ago now. I'm in my 18th year at this point of being part of the group, and that's my brief, in a nutshell, so to speak, my brief history of my time on planet Earth.
That's very cool. I looked a little bit into you, and I was like, how do I mention all this stuff or bring it up in one question? So I figured the best thing to do was just ask him about himself. So let's talk about the band for a few here. Styx has just come out with, I want to call it, a greatest hits CD called Regeneration Volume 1 and 2. What was it like recapturing all the hits with this CD? And did you, along with the other members, want to do something different with each of the individual songs? Or what was the plan behind that?
Well, several of the things you've mentioned already. There's the fact that when you play these songs live as much as we have, we're closing in on 2,000 shows since I joined the band at this point, and the songs, they do morph a little bit over the years, and they change, and the inflection changes, and the approach to them changes. However, you still want to, it's a funny balancing act. You still want to remain as true as possible to their original intent and their original, sonic structure, so to speak. And so we tried to kind of walk a line when we did the Regeneration records where, the everything from the past and from the original recordings was retained as much as possible or replicated as much as possible, but at the same time to give the songs, it's almost a subtle thing, but more of a current approach to them, so they're, Tommy Shaw will describe them, they sound maybe a bit beefier, words like that. There's Todd Sucherman on drums. There's a different approach. It's a different era. Yet these songs have survived and have lived, and so it's just a way of documenting where we are with them at this point and adding them to the current catalog of newer stuff that we've done as well. It's just a way of doing that, which is not altogether different from what we do with our live recordings that we release. The latest one of which is called Styx Live at the Orleans Arena. That's another way of kind of documenting where the band is today and how the audiences are reacting to them and reacting to us, and where we are on the arc of our overall career. It's important to do that when a band has been around for decades, like Styx has, to kind of keep reminding people of where it is now, and also really addressing all the new people that have come along who are under the age of 30 and weren't even born when some of the biggest albums were made in the classic rock era, and kind of bringing them, giving them what we can that's in the current day that keeps them informed and engaged in the whole experience.
No, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, I have to agree with Tommy after listening to it. They did sound beefier. They really did.
Yeah, it's funny. I like both. I like listening to the original recordings because they really are a tremendous time capsule of where the songs were in the 70s, so to speak. And I like listening to our renditions today because they really are reflective of what the band has done with the songs, which is, as I say, walk a line where we're as faithful as we can be, but at the same time trying to make the songs as meaningful today as we possibly can, so that we and people that are listening to them can relate to them in current, fashion and kind of personalize the songs in 2016.
Right. I have to agree with you. I mean, I love both. I love the original stuff. I can remember. I can remember when Grand Illusion came out, and that was like, I fell in love instantly. It was amazing, and it's still amazing today. But yeah, it has a little more beef to it, I would have to say. Styx has so many great hits and so many favorites for so many fans. What was it like for you to come into this beautiful, amazing mix of musicians and know this was actually going to be your home for a long period of time?
Well, first of all, I was pretty honored that they thought of me and thought that I could do it. So there was that initially. There was also, fortunately for myself, so I'm not saying this in a way to be immodest, but just because I'd had enough of a background and had played all the same arenas that Styx play when they went across Canada, I played them all myself and headlined them and had many years of experience that kind of paralleled along with their career. So it was a fortuitous kind of timing that I understood and fit their era of music. And we were, like I said right off the bat, for the first time we really sat down and played together, there was a musical kind of simpatico that we had as musicians, but also as people, and what our goals were for the next coming years. And at that point, we had, Greg, it was like we had kind of this 5-year plan where it's like, I wonder, can we get Styx? Is there another good 5 years of touring that we could, bring this band forward? And a lot of the instigation for that was that suddenly there were all these cultural references to the band. The movie Big Daddy had just been released with Adam Sandler, and the kid in the movie refers to Styx as the greatest band ever. And South Park had Cartman singing the song and singing "Come Sail Away," and then the television commercial, and there were a number of things that suddenly showed that wow, the classic rock era is suddenly becoming venerated by people who are either have been with it all along or new people that seem to be coming along at that point in small numbers, but increasingly over the years it's been kind of ridiculous. Well, anyway, not to be too long-winded about this, but that first 5-year plan was obviously not enough, because by the time we'd done the first 5 years together, it was extremely obvious that as the audiences were increasing in size and the enthusiasm for the band just seemed to be exploding, it seemed like, well, why don't we just do this until we can't do it anymore? And as I say, because why would you stop doing something that's so much fun to do? It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
If you're really deriving great benefits from it in so many ways. And I can say that over the 18 years that I've been doing it, ending a day with looking at a few thousand people with big smiles on their faces and standing on their feet, and the exchange of energy and positive emotion that's released, it's just a great way to live your life.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that. I seen you guys the Casino Ballroom at Hampton Beach a couple years ago, I think.
Oh, great.
And
what a cool thing.
Yeah, well, not to go off on another area here, but I'm not sure if you knew they had a fire up there this week. And
I did hear that. I heard that about 2 days ago, but apparently it's not going to affect us playing there.
Right. No, it's just smoke damage, so that's it. I just wanted to give you a heads up and let you know what's going on, just in case you weren't clear on it. Yeah.
But I'm glad, but the place is still intact.
Oh yeah, definitely. But you guys were great up there. The show, you guys incorporated the fans into it, and it was the most incredible, one of the most incredible shows I've ever seen. The old saying holds true that, the timeless classics really do go on, and it was like so surreal, and you guys made it feel that way, and that's what was great about seeing a Styx show. Let's go on to something else, because because I know we don't have much time
Sure,
here.
man.
So, from what I've seen so far, you give that certain oomph to Styx. According to some of the accolades from your bandmates, you are a perfect fit. Tommy said, "We knew right then and there he was one of us. I couldn't wait to play with him." JY marvels, he was this conservatory-trained guy who opened for us in a sold-out arena. A single guy at a piano who got 10,000 people on their feet. Todd adds, "We found another guy who shares all the same passions and work ethic. And Lawrence is an Iron Man. He's such a marvelous, gifted, clearly classically trained player." What is it like hearing these praises from your bandmates? And, what do you want to say to them?
Well, I think that $20 I split between them went a long way. That's good. No, I think that they, I can say I feel exactly the same way. We have a passion for doing this that supersedes, any differences that we may have along the way, and that does happen. That's life. We do often, there'll be some little clash that comes along, but what knocks it, right out of the equation so quickly is that we're so focused on wanting to make the band as great as it can be, and to continue to have that experience and sharing that experience with guys who are like-minded is so rewarding, Greg. That's the greatest thing about being in a band. And this is why it's funny. I think that people who are not necessarily, greatly successful musicians, but people who have music in their lives and play an instrument, if you found a few people, guys or girls or, people around even your neighborhood, and you just have a band. There are guys that I grew up with who still have bands, who've never even played a live gig, but still derive such benefits from it. I know this is taking it in another direction, but there is this tremendous bond that you form with people with whom you make music, and if you're open to allowing it to take you to that great place, it's just a tremendous way to enrich your life. And when you're fortunate enough to do it for a living and be with people who, in a band like this, where after years of being together, they're still speaking highly of our relationship, it's a wonderful thing, and it's something that I think, everyone can experience as long as they plug into what music can do to their lives.
Styx has many favorites from top to bottom. What songs would you say are your favorites to play, and why?
Well, it's funny. I'd been in the band for about nearly 12 years before I actually discovered some of my new favorites. We did a live CD of Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight, those two albums in their entirety, in 2010, and that uncovered some songs that I'd never played, and some of which had never been played live before. And subsequent to that tour, we began including a lot more of those songs in the set. So, right off the bat, you're going to love doing Grand Illusion or Come Sail Away. Lady's a great song to play. And then, of course, there's Blue Collar Man. It's wonderful. Crystal Ball, I remember that. Crystal Ball was probably the first Styx song I remember hearing on Canadian radio, where I suddenly heard it and cranked up the volume and thought, oh, this is really good. So those are great ones. I'd say it's funny, though, to answer that question really, really accurately, I'd have to say that there's something about the song Renegade, and there's something, I don't sing it live. I'm not the lead vocal on that one. That's Tommy Shaw. But whenever we play that song, it's usually towards the end of the night, and audiences everywhere. It's astounding how you see when you begin a show, kind of the audience temperature, so to speak, or their overall mood, can be very different if you're playing in Japan, or if you're playing in America, or if you're playing in England or Sweden. It's amazing how different they are at the beginning of the show, and by the time we get to Renegade, just how alike they are. It's a great thing to observe, and as I say, because I don't sing lead on that song, it's a moment where I can kind of take stock of the overall night, and so that amplifies the already great experience of doing the song, just to see how the overall concert has affected people, and how that kind of cherry on the top, so to speak, is the ultimate release for audiences. So that's a joy to perform every night.
All of you together are just so succinct, and it really does show in your performances. You mentioned earlier about the live DVDs that you put out. Can you expand on them a little more as far as Pieces of Eight?
Sure. Grand Illusion, yeah. Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight, that came out in 2010. We did a series of, I think, it was 26 shows or something close to that, where we did just those two albums. That was the concert for that tour. And as I say, that was right around the time when we began to really, really notice that younger and younger people were coming to these shows in larger numbers, and now it's about 50-50 every night. Half the people are over 30 and about half the people are under 30 on any given night, give or take a few percentage points. But around around that time, 2010, this is when we really began to notice it, and when we would be playing songs that were not singles. And this is something JY really marveled at, Some songs like, for example, Man in the Wilderness, which is on side 2 of Grand Illusion, that seemed to go over just as big as some of the biggest singles. And then from Pieces of 8, the title track, Pieces of 8, which was not a single, it was amazing to see how well that went over. I guess what came to light was that a lot of the younger people that have gravitated toward the records have chosen their own favorites and weren't as welded to the singles that came out and were played, universally around the world. Instead, they've found various other songs in the overall package that resonate with them and have become favorites. And subsequent to that, that's why we include a number of those songs in the set, over the years. And those become the kind of the variables that come and go in the show, whether it's I'm Okay or Castle Walls or, Snowblind, although that's from the Paradise Theater album. These are songs that come and go from different shows, and it's great to see the reaction that those tunes get, how you can see some people are just ecstatic that song they perhaps didn't expect to hear is now, a pretty central part of the show.
Right. No, and, it really is. I've noticed that as well. I mean, even at that show, that one show I did attend, I noticed the definite distinction between the age groups, and it's like, wow, these guys, not only are still relevant with the people that grew up with them, but they've got a whole new fan base as far as age goes, and it's like, it was really, really refreshing to see that. Not that I didn't expect it, mind you, but
it's a great surprise. I mean, I went and saw the Stones about 2 years ago. We had a rare night off, and I got to see them, and to see the age range of the audience was like, there were a row of guys in front of me, people in front of me were about 15, 16, 17 years old, and behind me were people who were about 65 to 70 years old. And I loved that. I loved the fact that music had really, with the Stones, had really hit all generations in such a way that they were just as enthusiastic about it. And, I guess what we have to acknowledge at this point is that rock music, and I'll specify saying classic rock since that comes from a certain couple of decades, it really it's undeniably the great musical statement of the last half of the 20th century. So we shouldn't be all that surprised that, as you mentioned, that this has occurred, that the music has lasted to this point, and that it resonates with people to such a strong degree that they're just as enthusiastic about it today as when it first came out. So that's a great thing to be celebrated.
No, most definitely it is. It's amazing to see that. I'm so fortunate that I was one of the lucky ones who got to experience when all this stuff actually came out. Not that I don't love not that I don't love seeing it now today, but it's very special when you've grown up with this stuff. It kind of hits home more for the fan.
It is, and like yourself, I grew up with it, and I can honestly say that the greatest form of entertainment, and definitely the most lasting form of entertainment as far as like the afterburner effect of what it does to your life, is seeing a great rock show. There's nothing I've experienced in life. I've seen great movies through the years, and I love seeing Cirque du Soleil. Those are great shows as well, but it's nothing, they don't compare with the lasting impact that a great rock show can have on your life, and how much that you carry that with you for years and years to come. And I can remember seeing, the first time I saw Pink Floyd, or, and then seeing them, 20 years later and going, oh my God, they're just good or better than ever. It's one of these great things in life that unites people. There's nothing dividing people when music's at the center of their experience.
So, so true on that one. I've seen it time and time again, and, it's a great thing to see. I wanted to touch quickly upon what you mentioned earlier about Styx has released a video of one of your shows. It was live at the Orleans Arena, Las Vegas.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that particular show, and what was it like for you?
This DVD is a little different from other live ones we've put out. We have the show itself. I think we have a good number of songs from the actual show, but in addition to that, we decided to incorporate some of the behind-the-scenes stuff with our crew, because they are such an integral part of being able to do this on a daily basis that we thought we should include a good chunk of that. A lot of backstage banter, we were on tour with Def Leppard that year, and it was, we have a great camaraderie with those guys in that band, and so some of our shared backstage experience and comments really at the heart of this DVD, and then you cut back to the show, which is shot in Ultra 4K, and so it looks really spectacular. So that's a very unique package, Styx at the Orleans Arena.
I've seen some clips of it here and there and checked it out.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing, to be honest. Styx has done just about everything there is to do musically. Do you think there are any other areas musically Styx has yet to conquer?
Well, yes. I mean, it's funny. We release new material at a very slow pace these days, as do a lot of bands from that era, because it's the live portion of what we do that we keep our focus on the most, because that's basically how the world has shifted and where we derive the greatest enjoyment really from it is that. At the same time, in the background, we're always working on new things. Our sound checks are usually half of them are new things that we're working on and experimenting with. And I think that I'm very hopeful that something like that, nothing imminent at this point, but something like that will emerge where people go, wow, they've never tried to do that before. Because there are moments during sound checks, particularly, where new ideas surface and we go, we got to come back to that and finish that off. So when we get a chance to, that's where we uncover some new ground.
Is there anything else you can tell us about Styx we might not know about that is in the future?
Well, yeah, basically the previous thing we just discussed is it's not a question of if, it's when. When the time is right for us to put out some of the things that we've been working on, we'll do so. But in the meantime, we really are a band that is kind of remarkably focused on the present. And I think the older you get, the longer you do this, the more you appreciate the kind of gifts and the spirit of what is happening in the moment, because you can't take it for granted that it's going to go on forever. You really do connect to the day, whereas, in decades prior, when you're a younger guy, a younger person, you see the future as this open road that will continue on forever. And although that's kind of what we hope for, as you've done it and as you get to the age that we are now, you begin to really, relish the now, so to speak.
No.
So we try to keep our eyes on that.
No, and that's totally fine. Totally understandable. I try to do the same thing.
Before we go here, October 20th, we're in Northampton.
Yeah.
And then on the 21st, we got Hampton Beach. So we got the Hamptons coming up.
I believe you're down at Twin River Casino. I think you guys are doing a show there. Are you doing something down one of the casinos, either Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun?
I believe so, yes. I don't have my itinerary in front of me at the moment, Greg, but yeah. If you look on the Styx site, I think you'll be, hold on, I might be able to, just one little second here.
No, you go for it.
Well, Calvin Theater in Northampton, that's on the 20th. Then we've got the Casino Ballroom at Hampton Beach. Yeah, you're right, yeah. Then the Twin River Casino in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and then we move on up to New York after that.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to be in the area from the 20th to the 23rd, so looking forward to seeing everyone, and especially, as I mentioned to you before, New England, that part of the country at this time of the year is so beautiful.
I know, man, I know, and once you guys come down this way, I hope you enjoy it. Some of the colors are beautiful right now, so they're popping. So I want to take the time right now to thank you, Lawrence Gowan, lead vocals, keyboards for the legendary band Styx. I thank you so much. NECR thanks you. This has been an incredible conversation. I wish you all the best in the future with everything you do, not just Styx. So again, thank you very much.
Same to you, Greg.
No problem. Anytime. And I'm hoping to catch you on one of these New England shows. So
we are too. I hope you can make it out to one of the shows, Greg. It's fun talking to you, and we'll see you up the road.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Okay. All the best.
All right. You too. Peace.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lawrence Gowan, lead vocalist, keyboards for the legendary band Styx. I am Greg, a.k.a. Crazy G, once again for NECR New England Concert Reviews. Until next time, I'm out of here. Later. Peace.